Howdy y'all, Wyrm here. So a couple of days ago we got the patch notes for 5.3, or the preliminary notes at least. This patch contains not only new content, but it contains a massive amount of quality of life changes, far more than previous patches have actually added in. So I'm making this video just to go through some of the quality of life changes you may have missed in the patch notes and in the live letter as well. So let's get to it. Now this is one of the most major changes that's coming in 5.3 from a quality of life perspective. The main scenario quests for Around Reborn have been revamped. So essentially what that means is they've streamlined the entire questing process of Around Reborn in regards to the main story. So they've removed some quests that were pretty much redundant. It doesn't really change the story at all, it just makes it a lot easier if you're doing the quests from leveling from 1 to 50 and then the quests all after that. So essentially it just makes it a lot easier for new players to actually go through the story quests, because it's been one of the main hurdles for new players to actually grind through all that story quests before they can actually move into the next expansion. Here's the other major change that's coming in. So mounts can now fly in Around Reborn areas. This is quite possibly the biggest quality of life change in the entire expansion, because it vastly changes the original world of Around Reborn. Not only do we have the ability to fly in all of these areas, but all of the areas actually had to be updated in order to account for flying, because the terrain in the background that we couldn't see from the ground level actually wasn't finished. Like if you saw through the other side of the map, you'd notice there was actually nothing there, it was just a big void. So they had to do a lot of work in the background in order to actually make everything look a lot more seamless. So you can see with this image of Mordona, you can see everything is vastly improved now that you have a flying mount. So the entire environment just looks a lot more seamless. So Around Reborn now looks far more complete than it did before. Here's another quality of life change not many people actually noticed. So the quest for I Believe I Can Fly has been removed. Players now just need to complete the Ultimate Weapon quest, which is just part of your main story quest. So you don't need to go through this in order to learn how to fly. An important thing as well, that quest itself actually used to give an achievement. That achievement's going to be removed, and it used to give an armor set for your chocobo, but that's being removed as well. But you can still buy it with achievement certificates, and the vendor for that, as I recall, is in Old Gridania. Quest objective icons for all quests have been adjusted to indicate elevation. So this is generally just making the quests a lot easier to recognize when you're going from one to the next to the next. This mainly applies to the older expansions and Around Reborn as well. So it makes it a lot easier for new players especially to actually know which quest to go through from one to the next to the next. Here's a major one that my friends and I are actually really excited about. Levy quests can now be initiated and abandoned while riding a mount. That's a major change, because before, if you were doing levy quests and you were in a flying area, for example, if you were flying high, you had to go all the way to the ground, dismount, and then start the quest. But now you can just start the levy quest while you're in the sky and then just fly down and do what you need to do. So that's a major quality of life change that's going to save a lot of time for some people. Some changes are coming through for the Gold Saucer as well. The first one is the average wait time will no longer be displayed when queuing for chocobo races. It's not exactly clear why they did this, but I'm assuming it's mainly because the queue is pretty sporadic, so the estimate time was usually always way off the mark. So by removing it, it probably makes things just a little bit better for people who are actually doing that content. Doman Mahjong is also being changed, which is something I'm really happy to see because I love that game. So an explanation of the power penalty will now be displayed when triggered, which is a good change, and the position of the cursor when selecting tiles with a gamepad has been adjusted to make it easier for people on a gamepad to actually play the game. Here's another change to the battle system. So the descriptions of certain actions and statuses has been adjusted. Their effects have not been changed. So I think this is mainly just to describe ailments and status actions just a lot better, just to make it a lot easier to understand, because some of them are a little bit convoluted when you're looking at them, particularly the older ones. Here's a major change that everybody's excited for. The period of invulnerability after being revived will now be indicated by the Transcendence status effect. So, as you know right now, if you die during a fight and you're revived, you have a period of invulnerability as you're being revived until a point. As long as you don't move right away, you have that invulnerability, which is a saving grace for a lot of us if we're getting raised, because if there's an AoE action going off or a certain mechanic, It allows you to dodge it and then just continue with the fight. This takes away all the guessing games of it, so you're not guessing how long you have until you actually need to try and move. So if you can see exactly how long you have left of invulnerability combined with the fact that you're seeing mechanics come, this is a major change that I'm really happy for. Players can now change the name of active sets in the blue magic spellbook. So this is a quality of life change just to make the blue mage actually a lot simpler to use in terms of organizing all of your active sets and abilities. Because as you know, the blue mage has a massive set of abilities, so being able to organize them a lot better with names is a quality of life change that's really welcome. Here's a couple of quality of life changes I don't think anybody was expecting. So the first one is an experience point bonus will now be granted when completing dungeons for the first time. Bonus will not be granted for dungeons with a level cap of 50, 60, 70 or 80. So this generally means it applies to all the dungeons in the leveling stages of the game, so everything between 50 and 60, 60 and 70, 70 and 80. This is a major thing, especially if you're leveling a new alt, for example, or especially for new players. It allows them to level up a lot quicker, which is a major change and a welcome one. Now this is a change I was not expecting, and it's coming years after people were asking for it. Attacks by the coin counter and Wyrm Veil will now have action indicators. So this guy does a lot of cleaves, he does a lot of conal AoEs and circular AoEs, but they don't have indicators at the moment. So this was largely a guessing game. Usually we're rubbing up against the wall over here in order to try and avoid everything. Honestly, I'm going to miss it if it goes, because this was a real challenge, especially for new players, and it made them just focus and just try to figure out exactly how far you need to move away. It made you be alert. It was a nice little different fight, but this will make it a lot more consistent now, so it's the end of an era when it comes to the coin counter. The contents of treasure coffers in the following dungeons have been adjusted to ensure players receive gear of a suitable strength. So as you can see, these are mainly just Realm Reborn dungeons for the leveling stages. Now, these dungeons have an abundance of treasure chests, but the treasure chests only drop like potions and a few random items that you generally don't even use. Now they're going to drop gear suitable to the strength of the actual player who opens the chests. So this is a major change, and it'll allow people to gear up a lot more easily when they're doing their leveling grind, and particularly now because the leveling grind is going to go a lot faster. Being able to have access to gear like that as you're grinding dungeons is a major asset for new players and older players who are leveling other classes, for example. For all those interested in PvP like myself, these following changes are actually some really big ones. So the first main one for frontlines is that the preparation time before matches have been reduced from 90 seconds to 45 seconds. That's a major change. The long wait time was mainly there before because when we used to have PvP gear and you had to do a lot of preparation and there was a lot of planning stages, but we generally don't really do that anymore because we don't really have PvP gear anymore. This change is also coming to rival wings, which is a major thing. So this is actually getting reduced from 90 seconds to 45 seconds again for the rival wings mode. And as somebody who grinds this mode every week, this is a very welcome change for me. Here's one of the changes people have been waiting for so long. So the Sundry Splendors is a new vendor that's going to be located in every major city-state. And it essentially combines all of the tome vendors from Mordona, Walger's Reach, Idleshire all together into one in order for you to be able to buy every item that you require from them. So this is a major change, and as you can see, they're going to be located in every major city-state and allow you to buy any gear that you need without having to go to Mordona, Idleshire or any of the other places. Here's a major change as well. The sort function has been adjusted. Items with a similar function will now be arranged together when sorted. So this allows you, if you're going through an item vendor shop, to sort through the items a lot easier, which is a major change. To reduce system stress, the timing in which changes to gear, durability and spirit bond are processed have been adjusted. So this is a change that we didn't really see coming, but it's pretty much going to be a welcome one because it will reduce the stress on the servers. So essentially, as you were running through a dungeon and your gear's durability was dropping and your spirit bond was going up, that was calculated in real time as each mob was actually defeated. However, that's going to change now, so all of that will be calculated after you leave the dungeon. So as soon as you defeat the final boss and you exit the dungeon, all of those information will be calculated and added to the character and gear. So as you can see, it's affecting all sorts. It's affecting the instant dungeons, raid dungeons, alliance raid, trials, fates, etc, 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 and the treasure dungeons as well. So that's a major change. Crafters are really excited about this one. The materials in your inventory can now be used to search for crafting recipes. So if you have a bunch of items lying in your inventory, so say you were grinding fates or grinding quests for example, and you have a bunch of materials, you'll be able to see if you can actually craft something with them right away, rather than having to scroll through your entire crafting log in order to see if there's something you can craft with what you're currently holding. This is another major change that people are really excited for, trial synthesis. Essentially allows you to trial the synthesis of an item, just so you can see that you can actually craft it to the quality you want to craft it to, without having to waste any of your materials. This is possibly one of the most major changes, especially for me. Players can now use the world visit system when joined in a cross-world party. This is going to be major, especially for hunt groups, because hunt groups, and the trains especially, they travel from server to server to server. So being able to actually visit these worlds while still in a cross-world party, which you usually are in, is a major change, so you don't have to disband, go to another server and then actually redo a group. Here's some major quality of life changes for the Party Finder interface. The major one is this. A party of players can now join another party in the Party Finder. So say you see there's a party of 3 people queuing for a trial, and then you have a party of 2 people in another Party Finder, you can just join your Party Finder to theirs in order to fill it up, which is a major quality of life change, because if you've seen the Party Finder recently, you see all sorts of queues with people. Like, you'd notice that one group has everything another group needs and they just don't combine to each other. So this is going to be a major change for people. Enmity can now be manually reset when attacking a striking dummy. So essentially, if you're training with a striking dummy, you can reset your enmity instead of actually having to run off. That's essentially, I think, what this means, which is a major thing, because we all know when we're actually practicing with a striking dummy, we practice our rotation, then we have to end up running miles down the road in order to reset and then go back. Here's another small change that's also very welcome. Players can now access the official site via links displayed in game. So these links will display inside the game interface, and if you click on them, it should open a new browser to the link exactly you need to go to. Here's another major one for PlayStation 4. Links have been added to the following menus to open their associated official pages in your default web browser. That's a major one for PS4 players, and something that's been highly overdue. Here is probably one of the most welcome quality of life changes that has been years overdue. A hardware cursor. FFXIV custom scaling option has been added. So for example, if you have trouble tracking your cursor in a graphically intensive fight, you have the ability to blow up the cursor to be a lot bigger. And essentially that allows you to actually just track it a lot easier. This is something that's been asked for years. Even in Realm Reborn, I recall people actually asking for this feature. So those are most, if not all, of the quality of life changes that are actually incoming with patch 5.3. It goes without saying that everybody is extremely excited for the new changes that are incoming, especially the main story, which I am really looking forward to. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the like and subscribe button down below. And leave a comment, please. I'd love to hear from everybody. Thanks everyone, and have a good one. See you in 5.3.